Hey, welcome back. I'm Ferrikster, here to bring you some more Pokemon Go GBL battles. These battles are played in Little Jungle Cup Remix. Last time we had Little Jungle Cup, not the remixed one, but the original one. I managed to push my way up to number 1 on the leaderboard, and I sat there in that position for 4 straight days. And I'll link that video in the description down below, so you can take a look at the team that I ran originally, because none of those Pokemon that I used in that team were ones that got hit with the ban. So apparently the Pokemon that I used were not popular enough. Also, Vigoroth was not banned. I have no idea how that was. I could swear that was on every team. But not the things that got kicked. We ended up losing Cottony and Skorupi and Ducklet, and they also banned Salandit. Right? Or was that the other thing? Yeah, those Pokemon. Not allowed here. But regardless, I'm not running the team that I ran to push number 1. It is super early in the season, so I'm just not playing any particularly serious teams. But I did find a team that is working out really, really well, and it opens with Weedle. So this is a purified Hundo Weedle. It's not the top-ranked Weedle that you could use for Little Cup. Like a 13, 15, 15 Weedle actually is like the top ranked non-best buddy Weedle that you could use. Hundo Weedle never hurts to build one because you could always evolve it to use it as like a Master League Mega Beedrill or a Raid Mega Beedrill, or also more likely the best buddy rank 1 Little Cup Kakuna, because Kakuna, despite being an evolved form of Weedle, has even less CP. But it is, like, very bulky and stuff. So, you know. Not like building a Weedle for Little Cup could possibly be a waste, because it just has so many other uses that it could go on to be so many useful things later. But, yeah. So I'm opening with Weedle. Weedle, you really need to use a purified one, because if it doesn't have return, then its only charge move is Struggle. And it can charge those returns pretty quickly because it's using Poison Sting. Poison Sting is a very low damage but fast charging move. So you actually get to the returns kind of fast. So as much as, you know, opening up against somebody and finding that they're using Weedle and just being like, oh, this person is tanking or they're going to top left. And no, I'm going to kill you with it. Yeah, Weedle is here to just absolutely destroy some things. So, yeah, in this first game, I farmed down this Gorgeist, and a Skarmory comes back out, and I'm just going to throw this Return. Return will one-shot most things in Little Jungle Cup, coming from a Weedle. Weedle doesn't have, like, super high attack, but it does have kind of high attack. And Return hurts if you don't resist it. Even if you do resist it, something like Galarian Stunfisk still takes 50% of its health in damage from a single return from Weedle. So it's definitely viable. This isn't like a meme team, and Weedle does have positive matchups, as we are going to see. So let's hop in to casting this this game. So Weedle in the lead. I'm not, so I ran Weedle in the lead because I'm like, oh, you know, I'm using Weedle, I should probably feature it pretty prominently, let me try leading with it. Having run Weedle for 2 entire days, because I actually have run Weedle for 2 days now, I think Weedle would probably be strongest as a closer because it wins the zeros against actually kind of a lot of stuff. Like, it gets to its moves, not particularly fast, but it can tank one of most moves, and most Pokemon cannot really tank a return. Even Shelmet, which is a very, very bulky Pokemon in this league, takes like 90% damage from return. So a return that lands, you can then just farm down with Poison Stings. It's actually kind of nuts how usable Weedle seemed to be. When I built it, I was like, oh, I'm going to use Weedle because it's like the first couple of days, so I'll be facing, you know, a lot of people who maybe aren't as proficient as the game as I might be. It's really not even that nice of a way of saying that, but, you know, there's definitely worse ways to say it. But yeah, I would be facing off against people who are not as good as some of the opponents that I'm used to facing. So I was like, let me run Weedle for a while. I think that'll be fun. And besides, we just got like 300,000 dust, assuming you remember to use a star piece. I didn't, so I only got 200,000 dust for the end season GBL rewards. So yeah, I had to find somewhere useful to spend it, and spending it on, a nice XL Weedle, just it seemed like a really good use of that dust, for the beginning of the season anyway, because, there's no need to run straight meta right now. Guys, you don't even have to have positive sets to work your way up to like rank 20. You just have to get like X number of wins and, X changes, but it's just number of wins. You could make it to rank 20 going straight 1-4s. It would require a lot of top lefting, but you could 100% do it. So, Weedle is going to use return, and the opposing Stunfisk is going to shield. We have a ton of lag, and I don't know if they gained any free moves there, but they underestimated how fast Weedle gets to those returns, so end up having to shield a second one, which is honestly the right move because that return would 100% have killed. So with the first one, Weedle goes down to another Mud Bomb. That's fine. I have picked up 2 shields, and I don't have switch advantage, but Vigoroth is going to get a nasty farm. The only regret that I have is that I have no idea how much energy this Stunfisk has. So I was planning to maybe throw 2 counters in and KO, but at this point I'm like, oh, they must be energy dry, so I'm pretty sure I can farm down. No, they had quite a lot of energy. Probably should have counted, but I wasn't able to because of that little bit of lag that we had. Regardless, Vigoroth able to counter that Stunfisk the whole way down, throw 1 extra counter, and now I'm going to throw this Body Slam against the Scissor that comes out. So, Body Slam is single resisted by Scissor, and Brick Break is hitting for neutral because Bug and Steel. So hits for neutral because Bug resists fighting and Steel takes super effective damage. It still makes sense to throw Body Slam. Body Slam is such an efficient move. They're the exact same. It's the same price as Brick Break, and it has Stab as a normal type. So the only time you're going to throw Brick Break with Vigoroth is if Body Slam is resisted and Brick Break is super effective. That's the only time you're going to be throwing it. Or if, Brick Break is double super effective and Body Slam hits for neutral. Those are the only scenarios. So it's only really going to come up against G-Fisk, and now that Steelix is a thing, excuse me, now it'll also be the move to use against a Steelix. Because Steelix recently, they added Psychic Fangs to it. There was a huge moveset update, and I guess I'll cover a little bit more of that as we, move along into the season. As you can see, Shelmet does not shield the return and ends up forced to switch out of this matchup, switching into an Onyx. Onyx is a safe swap. I don't know if that's something that I would say is a particularly safe swap. Because, it gets kind of super walled by G-Fisk. If you're thinking about using an Onyx safe swap, I would say probably just go with G-Fisk instead, because they have a lot of similar matchups, but G-Fisks just are overall a lot better. And G-Fisk also really, does a good job of kind of walling Onyx and Steelix. So my opponent is going to bring a Swinub out, and I am just going to go straight for Muddy Waters. Muddy Water. So Muddy Water G-Fisk only makes sense in Little Cup, and I guess if you've never seen it before, you would think like, boy, that is a strange decision. Little Cup Pokemon are quite squishy, so while Earthquake would probably one-shot nearly anything, Earthquake takes 8 Mud Shots to reach, and Muddy Water takes 4, so you get 2 Muddy Waters for the same cost as 1 Earthquake, and as you can see from how much the Muddy Water had done to the Swinub, 2 Muddy Waters would have KO'd, an Earthquake would have KO'd. It just is good to have a little bit more flexibility that you get from Muddy Water, and it makes things like the G-Fisk Mirror a lot better. G-Fisk Mirror is really difficult. So, Weedle into Steelix. The leads have not been super kind to me in this first set, and I know it probably looks to some of you like, oh, Weedle is not really carrying its weight very well. Well, I mean, it only weighs like 1.5 ounces, all right? So it doesn't have to carry that hard. But it definitely puts in a lot of work later on. So I got out of this Wigglytuff, and I am waiting out the Switch Clock because I don't want my Weedle to be trapped against Steelix for too long. Bring Weedle back out, farm down the Wigglytuff. I have a little bit of energy here, but it's not really a lot. And here, my opponent sends in Obstagoon, I imagine because they're expecting that I was going to insta-swap out, but my switch timer wasn't up yet, and I wasn't going to insta-swap anyway. But now there is an Obstagoon stuck against my Weedle, and Weedle's return hits pretty hard. One-shots the Obstagoon, and yeah, I have the alignment that I need because my opponent sacrificed alignment, anticipating an insta-swap from me. But yeah, now I'm just going to keep no shielding from the Steelix's Psychic Fang, because Psychic Fang is resisted by G-Fisk, and the Dragon Tails just don't really do that much. Just going to throw Muddy Water and then throw another Muddy Water, and that's going to be able to wrap up this game. So that's GG. Yeah, Steelix running Dragon Tail, it takes 3.5 Dragon Tails to get to a Psychic Fang, and it takes 5 Dragon Tails to throw a Crunch. But in my experience, they only seem to be throwing Psychic Fangs. Maybe that'll change by the time, maybe once, everyone's ELO has kind of stratified a little bit and they end up moving, and I end up facing off against mostly X-Legends, then maybe I'll start to get hit with Crunch. But so far, it has been almost entirely Psychic Fangs. All right, Weedle into Wooper. So this isn't bad. The Wooper has Water Gun as a fast move, so it actually makes it quite a bit worse, because that means I'm only going to be able to tank one charge move, and then they're going to end up farming me down. Whereas if they had Mud Shot, they would end up having to throw a second charge move, or I would end up getting to a second return. Forced them to shield the return. I really wish the Wooper would just let it go, because it would KO, and it would be nice to be able to actually hit some things with return. Again, I think that's why Weedle might make an excellent closer, so if you consider making one, you could definitely run it in that position also. Or you could save your dust for something that normal people would consider more practical, but I swear Weedle is perfectly usable. So, at this point, I am kind of committed to countering this Wooper down. I'm going to shield this last Body Slam and, yeah, throw these counters. We have some nice lag, which is concerning, but I don't think I lost a turn there. And a Dino is going to come out. So I'm just going to spam out this Body Slam as quickly as I can and then swap out to G-Fisk right away to start getting in these Mud Shots. And I really, really didn't want to get... I'm pretty sure one Dragon Breath would take out my Vigoroth, so I didn't want him to get the one Dragon Breath of energy for free. So I just swapped out right away to G-Fisk to prevent that. I don't think he was going to be able to reach a Dark Pulse. Maybe if he had gotten the one Dragon Breath for free against Vigoroth, then maybe he would have been able to. So that's why I swapped out of that instead of letting it stay in there to try to throw in one counter. Still, was able to take out with the Wigglytuff in the back and was able to take out the Dino. G-Fisk managing to roll over the things that were in the back line, and I managed to take that game. So that was a GG. All right, next up against Rakevolt. Weedle against Wigglytuff. So I was seeing a ton of Charmers in the lead the day before these games were played. So that was one of the reasons that I built the Weedle. I was like, yo, I can't deal with these Charmers anymore. These Charmleys are ridiculous. It's like so cheesy. So yeah, now I'm leading Weedle, who actually does really, really well against the Charmers, especially the Grass Fairy one, whose name escapes me right now, but I'll probably remember later. So since they had let me charge up on Weedle, I threw my first move against this Wooper, just to force a shield out of them without letting them get to a full charge move yet. And then after that, I can send out my Vigoroth, who in that scenario can tank one move. And here I decided to actually let this go. And I'm going to bring out my Weedle and farm the whole way down. I was expecting there to be a fighter in the back or something to back up Wigglytuff, because Wigglytuff, would be really bad against something like a G-Fisk lead or something, so I assumed they would have something in the back that would be good against there. So I was like, okay, let me just build up some energy on Weedle, and I'll just let Weedle kill everything and not have to worry about it. And there's a Drifloon back there, which is actually very good against both of the Pokemon that I have here. So I'm going to send G-Fisk out now, and at this point, end up taking an Icy Wind, and then they swap out to Wigglytuff, and this Wigglytuff is just a little bit too healthy for me. So I have been debuffed, so this Rock Slide is not going to be anywhere near enough. Able to get to this Muddy Water, and that is going to be enough to KO. Hopefully they shield, but I know they won't know better than to do that. I get one extra mud shot in, but it's just not enough for me to reach a move against this Drifloon. So unfortunately, just got kind of walled by Drifloon in the end there. Unfortunate because Weedle did have that finally had that good lead against a Wigglytuff. But yeah, I try to escape there with my Weedle intact because, you know, my Weedle is trying his best. So I don't want him to faint, but I didn't quite make it out in time. So that's a GG. All right, Weedle against Scrafty. This is actually fine. Like, Scrafty is a fairly meta Pokemon, and Weedle handles it expertly. So he farms up a bunch of energy and then swaps out, probably trying to catch a return or a struggle. Swapped out a little too early because, like, nobody knows the counts for Weedle. Most people don't even know what Weedle knows. It's only struggle. And if it's purified, it's return. And struggle costs 100 energy and does like 30 damage, whereas return does like 70 damage for like... No, like 100 and something damage for like 70 energy or something. It's like struggle is like the worst move in the game. I think it might be worse than frustration. I'm serious. So I go down a shield, but it's cool because I have tons of energy on this Weedle. I am going to throw this return, get a shield off of the Scrafty, and then my opponent swaps into a Zubat. So we very briefly got to see a screen where Weedle was fighting against Zubat, and it was a serious team. I've never seen that before in my life, not once. So, unfortunately for my opponent, Zubat can only take one Rock Slide and then is going to get Mud Shot the rest of the way down. Throw 2 Poison Fangs, but that doesn't really do anything to Stunfisk, and I am just spamming out Muddy Water. I'm expecting to get a shield anyway. Technically, Rock Slide would do more damage if it were to land, but I was really just hoping to get the defense drop. And this is going to mean that I'm going to be able to reach another move afterwards. But still, since I got the last shield down, I'm going to swap out into my Weedle. They're not actually attack boosted, and Weedle would survive that foul play, but just barely. And I'm not sure if I would be able to reach this return if I didn't shield, so managed to shield that correctly. And I get to my return, taking out the Scrafty. Weedle definitely carrying his weight in that game, even though it's only an ounce and a half. That is a GG. I'm sorry to all of my opponents, by the way, who got killed by a Weedle. I know it probably didn't feel great, but I mean, I had a nice time. Right? It's early season. It's very early in the season. Guys, just have fun with the game, all right? It's like the first couple of days. Don't take it too seriously yet, please. You know? Also, build a Weedle. So OP. So overpowered. Oh, Weedle's so good. So I ended up swapping out my G-Fisk into this Swinub, and they just are staying in. So I got one shield. At this point, I'm just going to go Rock Slides, because evidently they really, really don't want whatever's in the back to see this G-Fisk, which makes me kind of concerned that maybe it'd be like Swinub Double Flyer or something. And there's actually a Shelmet back there instead, so this is fine. I am double debuffed already. But Rock Slide still, you know, hits for super effective, does some reasonable damage. I swapped out into Weedle because I was trying to snipe with a return, because return 100% one-shots from there, but my opponent actually was insta-throwing a Body Slam, which would have meant I could have just gotten a free Mud Shot in, and it's not like the Body Slam would have done anything, done any significant damage to G-Fisk either. As you can see, because I'm about to get hit with one there, like, it would have been fine. It was just a wasted return. Like, that Weedle's return could have killed something. But maybe my opponent was anticipating the swap, and that's why they were throwing that instantly. Shelmet manages to survive the Rock Slide, and I'm actually okay with this. I'm going to get taken out with this Body Slam, but Vigoroth is going to be able to counter the Shelmet down, so it doesn't really make a difference. Opponent's going to send their G-Fisk out, or it's going to send their own G-Fisk out. I am going to throw this Brick Break, and I am going to counter this G-Fisk the whole way down. They're going to get to one Rock Slide, but that is not going to be quite enough to take me out. So Vigoroth's just going to counter down. Fully counter down this Shelmet, and just going to spam out Body Slam to take out this Swinub. Yeah. Brick Break, again, would hit for super effective, but you'll still get more damage in overall with Body Slam. It's just such an efficient move, and it gets Stab, and Brick Break is so terrible, and that has not changed with the update. Alright. Next up, Weedle into Stunky. So I don't think I played this matchup out very well. Like, I probably should have just safe swapped my Vigoroth in this scenario. because they are using Bite, and that is just going to fully farm me down. I'm going to get one shield off of them with this return, because, I mean, you don't not shield from a Weedle, right? Like, nobody wants to shield from a Weedle, but you can't not shield Weedle. It's just the return, it hurts too much. So they end up throwing a Crunch and then debuffing me, swapping out to a Nidoran. I built up some energy on my Vigoroth before swapping out. Catch this Poison Fang on my Fisk, which is pretty much what they would have had to throw anyway. Nidoran only really uses Poison Fang and Body Slam. And Stunfisk resists both of those. Triple resists poison. So these Poison Fangs are doing nothing, but I mean, it is reducing my defense by an awful lot. So that's kind of why I've built up as much energy as possible, just because I'm kind of stalling out the clock. So that is going to give me the opportunity to just spam out a move, and hopefully my switch timer is up by then, so I'm able to send out Vigoroth. Immediately throw this Body Slam. That is going to take out the Stunky. And we'll see what is left over in the back. It is their own G-Fisk. My Fisk already still has an energy lead, or still has some residual energy, maybe like 3 mud shots worth. But they're not going to be able to get through Vigoroth anyway. I can just shield this Rock Slide, or if it's a Muddy Water, then I wouldn't even need to. Just counter G-Fisk down. Managed to take that game. That's a GG. Yeah, I don't know. Weedle did stuff. Got a shield. That was important, right? Again, probably should have swapped out. But I managed to take that into a 4-1. All right. Into this next set. So, Weedle into Shelmet. This is a pretty neutral matchup. My opponent immediately swaps out, though, into a Stunfisk. And if your opponent is swapping out of a neutral matchup, it's probably an ABB team and they're trying to draw out a hard counter to what they have in the back. Unfortunately for my opponent, if this turns out to be Shelmet double steal or something, I actually have 2 responses to steal in the back, because, you know, when you're leading Weedle, you need 2 responses to steal. That's just the way it is. So they're going to bring their Shelmet back out into this Vigoroth. Makes a ton of sense. And unfortunately for me, the Shelmet is going to get a really nasty farm here. Like, I'm going to get this first Body Slam out, and I am very close to getting my next Body Slam, but I go down with the energy for it. At this point, I'm actually going to send in a G-Fisk into this, just because G-Fisk is going to be able to tank this energy a lot better. I figured they would just go straight Bug Buzz, but they actually ended up throwing a Body Slam bait instead, so that's unfortunate for me. Now I'm going to let this go, and that's the Bug Buzz, which actually, you know, it's resisted, but it still hurts. So I'm not going to try to go for a Muddy Water bait, because it really doesn't do that much. I'm just going to go straight Rock Slide. Muddy Water does like less than half of its remaining health. Like, Muddy Water is a really terrible move. So go for this next Rock Slide, see what my opponent wants to do. They shield that also, so something in the back really doesn't want to see this G-Fisk, and that is fine, I guess. I'm just gonna wait and throw this Rock Slide here. I don't know what could be left over in the back. Hopefully I'm gonna be able to take it out with Weedle. Through 1 Mud Shot and spamming out the Muddy Water. This is not gonna be enough to take out a Magnemite. Hilariously, I think if I had thrown the Rock Slide, I actually would have KO'd, because Shadow Magnemite is that squishy. But Weedle gonna get one-shotted by a Magnet Bomb, not quite able to make it there. So unfortunate for me, and yeah, it was Shelmet double steal. It just wasn't the steal I was expecting. All right, Litleo in the lead. My team is ABA weak to Litleo, because Stunfisk loses to Litleo pretty badly, and Weedle also loses to Litleo even worse than that. So I swap out into my Vigoroth anyway. My goal with this Vigoroth is not to win Switch Advantage, because Switch Advantage will not help me at all. What I'm hoping is that I can get shields down and come out and farm down this Nidoqueen instead. That would be a lot better for me. So spamming this out kind of early before I'm too low, because I don't want them to think like, oh, you know, I'll just let it go and come in and farm down. No, just really don't need swap here. Really need shields. Luckily for me, I get both shields from my opponent, so I end up shielding this Poison Fang, because it could have been an Earth Power, but now my opponent's making a mistake with just throwing the next Poison Fang, because That'll help them, yeah, debuff me and get in some damage, but that also means that I am free and clear to farm the entire way down, which is super helpful to me. I spam out this Rock Slide because I was anticipating maybe Litleo would come out, but ends up being a Budu instead, so I'm going to build up a little bit extra energy, and they swap themselves out into their Litleo, so that means I'm going to be able to throw this Rock Slide. I'm just going to take them out, and now I can have a Weedle aligned with this Budu, and this Budu is running Razor Leaf, and Weedle double resists that. Weedle absolutely pulling its weight, shutting that Budu down. That is a GG. Managed to take that game. Right? This is. I hope I'm making a convincing case for how Weedle is super good and how you all should build one. All right, Steelix in the lead. That is not a good lead for Weedle. So I'm going to swap out immediately into Vigoroth. My opponent swaps out into a Wigglytuff. There have been an awful lot of Charmers lately. Throw this Body Slam. I get a shield, which is amazing. And I actually barely make it to my next Body Slam, which, if they no-shield this, it will honestly probably KO. And it does. My opponent lets it go. Comes out with their Steelix, and that just means I get it aligned with my G-Fisk, and this is why G-Fisk is such a better Steelix than Steelix is, because I don't need to shield a Psychic Fang. I don't know exactly what's in the back, but whatever it is, I'm sure it'll be fine. Weedle and Stunfisk form an almost perfect core, right? There's nothing that beats Weedle and Stunfisk, except in that one game where I misplayed, but Drifloon came out, but like Stunfisk actually is fine against Drifloon. I just played that matchup terribly. So yeah, opponent staying in. They finally swap out, and turns out there's a Shelmet back there. I end up throwing this Rock Slide, but that's actually totally unnecessary because Weedle could definitely have one-shotted this thing. Still, I am quite debuffed, so this Body Slam would actually KO me, so I'm going to shield that up. Now I am throwing a Muddy Water because I want to be left with a Muddy Water left over. And I thought it would do more damage than that, but it really did like nothing. So at this point, I'm like, oh, okay, you know, maybe this isn't as winning a position as I thought I had. Let me swap out into my Weedle, because Weedle is so strong. Like, I'll be able to carry in this game. Should be no problem, right? Yeah. So I'm going to take this Body Slam and easy survive it because Weedle is so strong. They swap out into their Steelix to try to snipe me down, but Weedle is too good for that. Gonna throw this Return, tanks out the Steelix. Actually could have done more damage than that. And I just need to farm this Shelmet down, and I do because Weedle is so freaking strong. And I managed to win this game. That is GG. Weedle is so good. You see Weedle? Weedle killed those two Pokemon in this matchup. Guys, Weedle is so good. Alright, next up against Garnerlaw. So Weedle into Scrafty. This is a sort of favorable lead. It's kind of bait dependent, because if they bait Pup and I shield it and they land the other thing, then that would be pretty bad for me. Swaps out into a Golbat, and I really don't have the most amazing response to this, because this is kind of a dangerous match even for Stunfisk. Like, I end up no-shielding the first Poison Fang, and really all I need to do at this point is to, like, you know, shield this, because even if it's a Poison Fang, you know, I'm going to be outpacing at this point. But I decide to get kind of greedy, no shield again, and that time it is the Shadow Ball. So now I don't have the best way of taking out this Golbat in the first place. I'm going to send Vigoroth out because I'm going to get to this Body Slam reasonably quickly. But I think Weedle was like one Poison Sting away from a return, so really I probably should have sent that out instead. So throw this Body Slam. Scrafty going to come out, and they swap out into a G-Fisk. G-Fisk is pretty strong against Weedle, not going to lie. Going to throw this Return. It does about half of Stunfisk's health. Like, if it weren't for the resistance, you could tell it would do devastating damage. So I decided to no-shield this Rock Slide, not because I don't think Weedle can hang, because Weedle obviously could. I just figured, you know, it's probably safer to put my of my hopes on Vigoroth here. I decided to no-shield the Muddy Water, and that actually leaves me so low that I'm going to get taken out by another counter anyway, so yeah, that Power-Up Punch goes through, and that last counter is probably going to be enough to take me out here. Like, I throw this Body Slam, but it gets shielded, and I faint to that counter that went through, so yeah, maybe mismanaged some things in that game, but yeah, at least Weedle got to, like, slap a G-Fisk sort of hard. Okay, Weedle into Wigglytuff. So, there were so many Charm leads the other day, and that is specifically why I was leading Weedle. You know, because Skorupi was banned, and Skorupi was supposed to be the answer, and that's what kept Charmers very unpopular before. They are forced to shield that return, and since I had built up some excess energy before, they probably lost track of how quickly Weedle can get to a return, because he actually gets a return kind of fast. So they end up shielding the second return, and now this Wigglytuff is in a convenient farm down range. All I'm going to have to do is shield once and just farm the whole way down. My opponent obviously doesn't want to get farmed down, so they set out a Stunfisk. So I assume by them swapping the Stunfisk out that they have a stronger response to Stunfisk in the back. So I'm just going to stay in and try to KO this Stunfisk and just leave myself with, as much energy as I can manage to leave this with. So I'm going to shield this in case they actually have Earthquake, which would be super weird, but then they actually do. And that means I'm safe to just farm the rest of the way down. Out of shields, but who knows what's back there. It is an Altaria, so there's actually not like a better G-Fisk answer, and I probably should have just swapped out to Vigoroth. But hard to make that read at the time. I didn't think they would swap out into their hard counter. Still, I was definitely going to make it to this move faster than they would. Unfortunately, they managed to catch this Rock Slide on their Wigglytuff, so that puts me in kind of an unfortunate position here. I should have swapped out to Vigoroth immediately, but I didn't. Instead, I stay in. I'm not going to make it to a Rock Slide, so I'm forced to throw this Muddy Water. It does at least a little bit of damage, and then I'm going to send Vigoroth out right away. Going to have to absorb one of these moves, but even a Moonblast, not quite enough to take Vigoroth out, and I'm able to counter down the Altaria, and I barely managed to salvage this game. My backline really not pulling through, and Weedle doing most of the work in that match, actually. So, managed to go positive. That is another positive set with Weedle. I go for a 3 out of 5. I get a Seagull, which is fine. It's not really what I need, but, I mean, there's no legendaries available at this time. And I think that was actually the third set, but then I threw in 3 more games because they were actually just really great showcases of Weedle being kind of amazing. Yeah, so was forced to swap out of that lead. They switch into a Scrafty, which is just going to shield this Body Slam and obviously force switch advantage, and that's fine. I can send Weedle out here. Weedle is a pretty decent response to Scrafty, so I'm just going to farm Scrafty the whole way down. I'm not going to bother shielding this. I assume they're going Foul Play first, but my lose condition for Weedle into Scrafty is shielding the bait and then them landing a boosted Foul Play, so safer to just let that go, and now I can easily let that Power-Up Punch go. No Steelix is going to come back out, so I throw one Poison Sting and then throw this return. If they decide to no-shield this, it's going to do kind of a lot. It does about half of Steelix's health. And now I can swap out into Stunfisk. I am going to no-shield this Psychic Fang. Lowers my defense, which is a little bit dangerous, but I do have shield advantage and now a little bit of energy advantage going into this Stunfisk match. And this is actually a Muddy Water Stunfisk mirror, which is a fairly common mirror in Little Jungle Cup Remix. And my opponent made a mistake by not shielding the first one. Even though they didn't get the debuff on their second Muddy Water, because there's a 50-50 shot of them doing it, if you're in a Muddy Water G-Fisk mirror, shield the first move because you might end up debuffing them the second time, and then the second one will do less damage. And it's actually really important. Here I decide to swap out, catch this Muddy Water on the Weedle. I knew I was building up excess energy and that my opponent knows if they can make it to the Muddy Water, they'll be able to KO me. But I just wanted to leave with enough energy so that I'd be able to throw this Muddy Water, take out that Steelix, and now I have this Muddy Water already loaded. My Stunfisk will win CMPs against all other Stunfisks, by the way, because it's got like 14 attack. It's comically upside down stats. So I managed to take that game, and Weedle, yeah, looked like very legit there, right? All right. Into this second bonus game. I think there's 3 of them back here. So Weedle into Vigoroth. That's actually like a fairly neutral matchup. My opponent swaps out into Steelix, which is a very hard Weedle counter. So I imagine they have a second very hard Weedle counter in the back, probably. But yeah, Steelix safe swap gets kind of really stopped pretty hard by Stunfisk. Don't have to shield the first move, even if it's a crunch, even if that crunch debuffs and your Stunfisk has terrible IVs. Again, mine has like 14 attack. Still doesn't make sense because they would have to double shield to get through Muddy Water, and it's just, it's just not worth it in this cup where charge moves do so much damage, except in this case, Muddy Water is pretty bad. Not like I need to get any damage done. Weedle's return would one-shot Vigoroth regardless. I'm going to let this Body Slam go. It does that much damage, which is an awful lot. My opponent swaps out into Stunfisk, and to be perfectly honest, if I had just thrown the return against the Stunfisk, it would have done half of its damage, and I could have brought Vigoroth out and literally just countered it down, maybe like shielding once, and then full countered down the Vigoroth also. So that would have been a totally safe way to win this, throwing the return against G-Fisk. Instead, I opted to go this route, which was, farming that Stunfisk down after shielding once. And now I'm going to have to throw these Body Slams against this opposing Vigoroth to take out their shields so that Weedle will be able to finish them off with a nice, fat, way overkilling return, which would definitely one-shot this Vigoroth in the first place. So yeah, Weedle, taking out that Vigoroth. That's a GG. All right, one more game. Pretty sure this is the last one coming up. Right? Is this against the Swinub? Yeah. So this is the first game in like a couple of sets where my opponent just didn't believe that Weedle could actually hurt them, and it very much did. Just slapped Swinub down, one-shotted it. And then Nincada comes out and maybe miscalculates, or it takes Nincada a while to reach a Night Slash, so Weedle just gets to another return. This one forces the shield at least. I was really hoping my opponent would let it go in frustration, but they decided not to, and that's fine. And here I make a terrible misplay for the rest of this match, which is actively swapping out and then, losing alignment. Like, I could have just left. I should have just let Weedle stay in there and get KO'd. Like, it would have been like 2 bug bites of energy, which isn't really that much. Bug bite doesn't really, build energy that fast. So I really shouldn't have done that, because then I could have just brought Stunfisk out into Nincada and been up a shield. It would have been totally fine. Instead, I have this situation, right, where I get full farm down and there's a Lotad here. So I'm going to shield because I was worried maybe it could have been an Ice Beam, but it was not. It was obviously just a bullet, just a Bubble Beam, which, was the most likely outcome. I swap out into Weedle just to clear my debuff. This Nincada is getting to another Night Slash, but they're basically energy dry at this point, so I'm going to be able to get both of these Body Slams out, and that is going to be a GG. But that was a way closer game than necessary, and Weedle did most of the work there. So yeah, just wanted to follow up with those 3 games. This isn't even a complete set or anything. I just wanted to, I just wanted you to see some of the games that I had that weren't in those sets where Weedle was actually kind of glorious. So, yeah, that was my team. It's not the most serious team, but, I swear Weedle actually works. But it's the first couple of days, guys. You can use anything. There's no reason to play hyper meta just yet. It's too early in the season for that. All you need are some number of wins. So, yeah. Don't forget to do the things you're supposed to do at the ends of these videos. I'll come out with a real team in, a day or two. And again, link to my, super broken little cup team will be in the description. So there's also that. Yeah. I'll see you when I see you.